It's late May here in Bill's garden. We're about 7 weeks ever since I installed tomato plants, corn, and other crops directly into a permanent cover crop in my garden. That cover crop was cut down quite low back in early April when I did my plantings, but it is now sprung back up and I have rye and clover growing everywhere. You can see here we have a forest of rye and clover that's surrounding my zucchini and beans and sweet corn here. And then right down here in front of me I've got tomato plants in their cages growing up out of this mass of clover. The bees are loving the clover, that's for sure. They're in here. And then over there there's rye coming up all around the corn and in back. So not that it's going to hurt anything if I left it here. I could just leave all this stuff standing, but I'm kind of thinking it's time maybe that I'll cut this down for compost and lay it into the garden to mulch the soil with. Chances are it will spring back up again. My cleanup campaign on this is really just more a matter of neatness, that it's easier for me to get around the rows and so on and find my crops if I cut this stuff down. Now again, the reason that I put all this into the garden is because I've been low on organic matter lately, also low on nitrogen, and so each rye plant has a half-mile of fine root here that's adding to my soil structure here. And the clover not only produces a lot of organic matter, but because it's a legume, it will fix nitrogen. That's the first number on your fertilizer bags. Right here are my weapons of choice in this project. I have a hand hedge trimmer on the left-hand side. I intend to use that right close to my crops. Over there on the right, I've got a gas-powered hedge trimmer where I can go through the large open areas with that one. I would probably never go ahead and plant my garlic directly between my peppers and the clover again, because it just looks a lot too much like the rye grass as I'm out here cutting. And I have cut down quite a bit of garlic and a few onions this year because of their similarity to the rye. Live and learn, you know. So I've selected my tool and away we go. Looking good, yeah. Along nice blacktop for the zucchini here. Oh yeah. Totally. That worked out pretty well, as you can see back there. The work was good. It was easy. I didn't destroy anything. Dropped all that organic matter right on down to the ground so I can walk around on it. Now I was going to go ahead and address this issue right here, where I have chilies with garlic, with tomatoes right here, and then right down the middle of the row we've got all this clover. So I was going to go ahead and see what I can do with this with a hand tool. So the tool of choice, we have it right here. It is a Corona head shear. And I'm just going to go on right down through here, right along my garlic in particular. That's what I'm worried about. Cutting this. So, not too shabby. I could use a little cleaning up. I'm not going to try and pretend that cutting down all the rye and the clover and alfalfa across my garden was an easy task. As you can see here by the sweat marks on my t-shirt, it was a good workout. Dipping and diving, ducking and bending, holding on to the power tool, running the hand cutters and so on. I think, somebody who had a little bit more space maybe, and had started this project in the beginning on the vegetable garden might be able to use a power mower or a hand push mower down the walk rows. I think that'd probably make things a little simpler. For me, this was a thought after the fact that I decided to grow living ground covers in my own garden, or living cover crops, while the crops were in place, and so things weren't really organized to make that particularly easy for me. It's definitely much easier around some plants than others. It's easy around the artichokes, not bad around the corn, it's terrible around the garlic. I'll be aware of that with the garlic in the future. Nevertheless, slightly difficult to maintain or not, I feel it was well worth the effort. Here you see zucchini and my snap beans and Romanesco, dwarf avocado, and then down here in the foreground ahead of it, you'll see the whole mass of clover and rye stalks that have all been cut down. The clover is still alive underneath for sure, and will pop back through this later. The rye may or may not, depending on how cool it stays this spring. If it stays cool, the rye will probably come back through one more time. If it's hot, it'll give up because it's a winter grain. I'm just, I'm tripped on it. This is jazzed, maybe is the word. Look here, we've got the onions and the chilies and garlics. Over here we got our tomatoes and the corn behind, and just look at that mass of clover. Hundreds of pounds conservatively, more like probably thousands of pounds of organic matter. See here along the edges of the corn by my walk row, all the rye cut down and laid out for straw mulch. Basically we're growing our own compost and we're growing our own mulches here in between the crops. The crops seem unaffected pretty much, or at least they're not negatively impacted by what I'm doing here. They all seem to be growing just fine. Here we have rye laid down between tomatoes and cucumbers, right along snap beans over here. You can also see here between my parsley plants where I have little baby clovers coming up. I'm liking the idea so much that I tossed out another 5 pound of clover seed across the garden just recently. Over here in the orchard, around the pear tree, I have rye and alfalfa has been cut. Here we've got the sugar snap peas up the fence with the clover cut down. Here's a cauliflower head just waiting for me to bring it in for dinner. Here I have fine broccoli. This is about 4th or 5th cutting regrowth on this broccoli, and it's growing again right in the midst of the clover, which you can see here has been cut down. The broccolis are just sticking up through it. This is so much organic matter, and if I had to buy it or truck it in somehow or another, but this is clean organic matter. It has nothing on it that didn't already exist here in the yard. So unlike when you import mulches, manures, or whatever you might be bringing into your garden, you never know what you're bringing in on those things. So if you're raising your own manures, your own cover crops, right here in your own garden, guaranteed that the stuff's going to be pretty clean. Here right underneath my apple trees, and all around my black raspberries, you see mulch cut down here on the ground. It's a combination of fava beans, of alfalfa, and of winter rye. The winter rye and the fava beans are winter annuals. The favas sow themselves. They just kind of live here in my yard. The rye was planted last October, and the alfalfa has been existing in between these plants for a decade at least now. Well, there we have it. That's the follow-up to living cover crops in Bill's garden. That'd be the second installation on this process. Hope you enjoyed it. I certainly am. This is working out slick as all get out. It's really an excellent idea. Planting legumes and cereal grains in between your already existing vegetable and fruit crops. See you later. Happy gardening.